So Tna Impact took place once again in Orlando, Florida. The show starts with Montel Porter coming to the ring. Porter says that he wants Abyss to understand that he wants everyone in TNA to be perceived equally, and that his or her talent will determine whether he or she succeeds or fails, rather than resorting to shortcuts. Porter says that a meeting with the upper level heads has resulted in a ruling, but before Porter can announce it, Magnus, along with Abyss, comes to the ring. Magnus tells Porter that Abyss only answers to him, not the company, and that Abyss will never be in a ring without him being there as well. Porter says that since Magnus has laid down that law, he's willing to give Abyss a shot at the title. Porter says that one person is missing from this party, someone who's been cheated from becoming the champion. Porter decides that Magnus will defend the world title against Abyss and Samoa Joe in a three-way match next week. Then Samoa Joe comes to the ring. Joe tells Porter that he deserves a clean shot at the title, instead of having to go up against both Magnus and Abyss. Porter says that that's not the case, and that it'll be a three-way match, with Abyss going for the title on his own. Joe tells Porter that he may have to deal with him, but then Magnus attempts to interject, and Joe slugs him. Joe starts going on Magnus, but Abyss hits him from behind. However, Porter goes after Abyss. Then Eric Young comes running into the ring and mixes it up with Abyss. Magnus tries to grab Young from behind, but Young gives him a mule kick to the groin. Then he drop kicks Abyss. After the commercial break, Young, Joe, and Porter are in the ring. Young tells Porter that Abyss is the issue that he needs to repair, so he wants to be in the world title match next week, so that Joe can get his shot at Magnus without any interference. Porter tells Young that he isn't worthy of getting involved, but Young takes Porter's company platform and applies his professional experiences and accomplishments in TNA to his argument as to why he should be in the world title match next week. Joe gets in Young's face and tells him that he has to wait until he gets his chance at Magnus. Porter says that Young presented a great case and puts him in the title match, making it a four-way match. Joe and Young start jawing with each other, and then they start brawling. Porter calls for the referees to break them up. Joe says that he wants a match with Young and tells Porter to endorse it. He does. Decent opening segment. I previously said that I didn't think that they would put Joe and Young in a match against each other. The reason being that it can be risky putting faces against each other because the audience doesn't know whom to cheer for, so they don't cheer. It seems that a tease of Joe turning heel is being done for the same reason that an Abyss face turn is being teased, to promote the title match next week. Abyss already had his face run as dumbass Joseph Park, and if Joe continues to pursue Magnus, he has to remain a face, so neither needs to happen. So then we see Bully Ray backstage. Bully Ray says that he's back on Twitter and that Robert Roode has jumped on the wrong guy. He says that Roode is going to get a feast of tables. So then we see Montel Porter backstage with the American Wolves. Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards tell Porter that they want a match against Magnus and Abyss, and Porter gives them the match. I guess that Richards and Edwards have to wrestle someone since there isn't anyone in the tag team division for them to face. TNA won't utilize Bad Influence, and the glorified jobbers are TNA's internal joke. I'm only going to make a reference to this once, and it doesn't even deserve that. This series of segments with Rockstar Dud, Ethan Carter III, and Jeff Willow was garbage. So then we have Magnus and Abyss versus the American Wolves. Decent match. The match ends with Eddie Edwards coming off the middle rope and executing a spinning head scissors on Magnus. Magnus tries to pull Edwards back to his corner, but Edwards kicks him away and makes the tag to Davey Richards. Richards comes into the ring, runs to the opposite corner, and nails Abyss with a kick. Richards ducks a blow from Magnus, comes off the ropes, and hits Magnus with a clothesline. He delivers a shot to the chest and whips Magnus off the ropes. Magnus reverses the whip, but Richards bounces off the ropes with a handspring and delivers a drop kick to Magnus. Richards sidesteps a charging Abyss, and Abyss smashes Magnus in the corner. They both recover, and Richards comes off the top rope with a dual drop kick to both of them. Richards delivers kicks to Magnus' chest and comes off the ropes. Magnus lifts him up, but Richards does a float over and holds him as Edwards hits Magnus with an enziguri. Richards executes a German on Magnus. Then Edwards flips over him for a double bridge pin. Magnus kicks out. Richards and Edwards deliver chops and kicks to Abyss. Then both come off the ropes. However, Abyss grabs both of them by their necks and lifts them up. But Richards and Edwards do backflips. They duck Abyss's double clothesline attempt, come off the ropes, and deliver drop kicks to Abyss's legs. Richards and Edwards deliver kicks to Abyss's head, and Richards comes off the ropes and hits Abyss with a suicide dive. Magnus charges toward Edwards, but Edwards does a roll-up and quickly converts it to a single leg crab. Magnus submits. The winners of the match, the American Wolves. After the match, Abyss grabs the world title belt. Magnus waits for Abyss to hand him the belt, but Abyss walks right past him. The American Wolves were good as always, and even though it was a random match, their presence was appreciated when it comes to the wrestling presentation. From a psychological point of view, it's understandable why Magnus submitted so quickly since his title wasn't at stake. But it still isn't a good visual for someone who has been promoted as a weak champion. Another dynamic that was added to that weakness was Magnus allowing Abyss to walk away with his belt. You're the world champion. You don't allow someone to grab your belt and then you stand there and ask for it back. You take it. You don't allow that person to walk off with it. You take it. Magnus looked really bad. So then we see Angelina Love come to the ring. Angelina says that Velvet has not made any contact with her since last week. So she calls out Velvet, and Velvet comes to the ring. Velvet says that she's pissed about Angelina's attack on Madison Rayne. She says that her decision to reform the Beautiful People didn't mean giving the okay to that. Angelina says that Velvet is nothing without her and that she knows it. She says that Velvet was a top bitch when they were together. Velvet says that the situation is different now, but Angelina says that Velvet's different. She says that she would rather be buried in the business than be a robot. Angelina says that she has a match against Madison and she wants Velvet to make a decision as to whom she wants to be with when it ends. Another dragging segment with the Beautiful People, but it brings us closer to the conclusion of what happens with Velvet. Will she turn or be turned on? So then we see the first of a series of segments that builds toward the main event between James Storm and Gunner. And this one was titled The Beginning. and it documents Storm and Gunner winning the World Tag Team Championship at Slammiversary last year. So then we see the second video of this series titled Conflict, which documents the battle between the two over the world title shot briefcase. So then we see Bully Ray come to the ring. He immediately motions for someone to come out, and we see various individuals, quote-unquote fans, bringing out tables. And with Bully Ray's help, they set the tables up inside and outside the ring. Bully Ray says that TNA would have made a lot more money if they had more tables for him to buy. He says that he's the reason that Dixie's not there any longer. Bully Ray says that Robert Roode would have become an emulator of Dixie if he hadn't done what he did at Lockdown. He talks about the number of tables that he wants Roode to eat. And then Robert Roode comes out. Roode says that being too tuned into becoming a part owner got him away from whom he really is, the best TNA World Champion ever. He says that that guy also buried a beer bottle in the back of James Storm's head and also gave Dixie's face a saliva wash first. Roode takes Bully Ray's number one question and uses it against him. Bully Ray tells Roode to shut up and get it on, but Roode says that he goes when he decides to go. Roode leaves, but Bully Ray runs up the entranceway, hits Roode from behind, and drives him back toward the ring. So basically this turns into a pseudo multi-tables match that ends with Bully Ray putting his foot through a table after a Roode sidestep, and then Bully Ray putting his body through another table after another Roode sidestep. This was decent, but if there are going to be 5,000 tables in the ring and outside of it, more than 2 tables should have been utilized. It does continue to build toward their match at Sacrifice. So then we see Abyss backstage, and he still has the world title belt. He walks into a room where Magnus is seated. Magnus stands and waits for Abyss to hand the belt back to him. Abyss forcefully gives the belt back and wants to know why Magnus submitted so quickly. Magnus tells him that he'll do that because the belt isn't at stake. Abyss tells him that he doesn't like that approach, but Magnus says that he better start liking it. He tells Abyss that his goal is to make sure that he keeps the title. And as far as next week goes, it means not trying to win it. Magnus really looked like a pussy sitting there, wondering if Abyss was ever going to return the belt. Take it, pussy. So then we see another video segment with Mike Knox and Tna. And they are inside an arcade that was damaged as a result of a flood in Knox's hometown. Knox thinks that he can salvage some of the machines, and Tna doesn't think that it's worth it. And then she continues to bust his balls about his selfishness in becoming a wrestler while leaving the family behind. Tna tells him that before they can discuss their future, Knox has to have a talk with the old man first. I'm still uncertain about this portrayal of Mike Knox, but I'm trying to stay open-minded. Tna is Tna Brooks. She is a former Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, and she was a member, or may still be a member, of a dance group called the Perfect Angels. She's also appeared briefly in some pseudo reality shows. There are videos of her on YouTube of her dancing with the Perfect Angels, and there's also a video of a calendar shoot that she did last year for the Perfect Angels calendar. So then we have a non-title match. Madison Rayne against Angelina Love. Okay, match. During the match, Velvet Sky comes to the ring, now wearing all black. The match ends with Madison executing a Northern Light suplex and Bridges for the pin, but Angelina kicks out. Madison drop kicks Angelina out of the ring. Angelina and Velvet start arguing with each other, and then Madison slides under the bottom rope and knocks Angelina down with another drop kick. Madison punches away at Angelina and throws her back into the ring. Velvet pushes Madison, kicks her in the midsection, and delivers a DDT. She throws Madison back into the ring, and Angelina covers her for the 3. The winner of the match, Angelina Love. The Velvet heel turn became obvious with the wardrobe change. Earlier, Velvet had the blue motif going. Here, you had the color change to black. TNA feels that the Beautiful People is the only angle they have in the women's division, and the desperation to recreate the past is evident here. But this is all they have. So then we see Eric Young and ODB. ODB tells Young that he needs to watch himself in his match against Samoa Joe so that he'll be ready to go for the world title next week. Young says that he doesn't care about being the champion. That's not true. Young wouldn't have run down his credentials to Montel Porter unless he wanted to be taken seriously as a title contender. He wouldn't have done that if it was only about neutralizing Abyss. So then we see Kenny King backstage in Montel Porter's office. King wants to get into the ring and he wants Porter to set him up against someone. Porter tells him that he'll take care of him next week. So Kenny King is finally back. And now maybe we can see some activity stirred up in the X Division. So then we have Samoa Joe versus Eric Young. Solid match. But it could have been longer. The match ends with Young throwing a blow at Joe. Young comes off the ropes, ducks an attempted clothesline from Joe, and hits him with his own clothesline. Young drop kicks Joe, then delivers a body slam. He goes to the top rope, but Joe gets up and charges toward the corner. Young jumps over Joe and comes back toward him, but Joe delivers a Uranagi. Joe goes for the pin, but Young kicks out. Joe whips him into the corner and charges, but Young gives him a boot to the face. He goes to the top rope and comes off with a moonsault, but Joe moves out of the way. Joe comes up behind Young and locks in the rear naked choke. He takes Young down to the mat and keeps it locked while on his back. Referee Brian Hebner does the raise and drop on Young and calls for the bell. The winner of the match, Samoa Joe. However, Earl Hebner is at ringside telling Junior that Joe's shoulders were down on the mat. Therefore, with Young on top of him, Young should have been declared the winner. As odd as it may sound, the way that this match ended makes sense, considering that it was between two faces. There was minimal damage to Joe because despite that it was a controversial win, it was still a win. And even though Young lost because of the controversy, it protects him from losing momentum for next week. So then we see Sam Shaw in a video from last week. He bursts into the makeup room where Christy Hemme is. She wants him to leave. He wants to talk. She slaps him. He cuts off a piece of her hair and smells it. He leaves. She cries. Christy was better here than she has been in previous segments. But there needs to be a conclusion. Not after the straitjacket match, but at Sacrifice. So then we see the final segment of the video build for the James Storm Gunner main event, Betrayal. And this depicts the events leading up to Gunner's title match against Magnus and Storm's heel turn. Overall, this was a very good presentation of the build for this main event. So then we have the main event. James Storm versus Gunner Unlocked. Good match. The match ends with Gunner executing a superplex on two chairs set opposite each other on the mat. He goes for the pin, but Storm gets his shoulder up. Gunner picks Storm up in a fireman's carry position, but Storm escapes and delivers a double knee gutbuster, and follows that with two super kicks. He goes for the pin, but Gunner kicks out. Storm goes under the ring and grabs a beer bottle, but Gunner has one in his hand as he grabs it from the corner. Storm prepares to slam it, but Gunner nails him first on the head. He picks Storm up and drops him with a fireman's carry cutter to get the pin. The winner of the match, Gunner. Show ends. Well, it should have ended there. For me, show ends. Is it over? Some are saying yes. That was the last match between Storm and Gunner. What about the World Tag Team title shot briefcase? What about that conclusion? It was brought up in the storyline, but now it seems to be forgotten. Maybe it will be remembered at Sacrifice. It has always been a flaw in TNA, starting something and then forgetting about completing that something. If you build a bridge across a river and stop halfway, you have half of a bridge that no one can use. James Storm would benefit better with the World Tag Team title shot briefcase. So complete the bridge and finish the thought. I'm TazMart 2002, and that was my TNA Impact Analysis for March 27th, 2014. If you're listening to me on YouTube, please leave your comments below. Click the like or dislike button, and if you subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. If you're listening to me on the Wrestling News Talk Facebook page, leave your comments below. You can click the like button if you like what I've been saying. If you have any questions or comments for me about TNA or wrestling in general, you can get at me on Twitter, TazMark2002, that's TazMark2002. And if your comments exceed the 140, get at me with an email. TazMark2002@gmail.com. And be sure to watch the TNA Impact review that I do with Chuck P live every Sunday morning at 11 o'clock Eastern Time on Chuck P's YouTube channel. And if you can't watch us live, you can always watch the archive. Decent show. Decent show. Bad influence. Where are they? Why haven't we seen them? Why are they not having matches against the American Wolves? Why are they not being utilized not only to put over Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards, but to make Impact that more entertaining to watch? Just a few of the many questions surrounding this tag team. But here's the most important one. Will they resign with TNA? That's the answer we want. But will the company give us the right one? I'm Tazmart 2002. Gone.